Merry Meet, Annie here. Welcome back to my Flow of the Rite series. We've cast our circle. We've invited our guardians to stand at the quarters. We've honored whatever aspects of the elements we would like to work with, and we have filled that circle with our very elemental essence. Now is the time to invite our gods to join us. I'd like to begin this video with reflections on the concepts of invoking our deities and evoking our deities. Here's what it is for me, and of course, we all have different experiences in regard to this. Invoking is calling something in to us, literally becoming one with it, connecting to it, sharing time and place with it, joining with it. Evoking is inviting something to be present, to stand by us, to be an ally, to be part of our working, part of our circle, present. We're not one and the same. However, we appreciate our relationship to each other. That, to me, is a very simplistic way of explaining the difference between invoking and evoking. Invoking, literally sharing our essence, our being with an energy or an entity. Evoking, inviting something to stand with us, to stand by us, each in our own place with our own strengths. I don't see that there's a lot of difficulty understanding the difference between the two. However, when we work in circle, it might not be as easy to understand when and how to invoke and when and how to evoke. It's interesting then, as a solitary. I think we get the evoke part right, the making an invitation to invite an energy or an entity to join us. In the circle casting we've done up until now, we evoked the presence of the guardians and the elemental energies, separate and distinct from us. But with us, within the circle, we have constructed, we're at the edges of it, if we use our guardians as an example. We are separate from them, but we know them well, and they know us well. There is a relationship there, but it is the relationship of distinct entities. What then happens to the solitary practitioner who would like to invoke the god and the goddess? And please note, gentlemen friends, I am speaking to you as well as to woman friends. The power of your invoking the god within you, the power of women invoking the goddess into them, and I also dare say, the capacity we have to invoke both into us, God and goddess, brought into and made an intimate part of us. How do we do this as a solitary practitioner? This is what it is for me. It may be helpful to those of you who are exploring this. As you begin your practice, you are most definitely evoking, inviting the gods to join your circle, because you don't yet have that intimate relationship with them. You're getting to know them. They are getting to know you. There is no rush as you grow your practice to move from evoking, inviting the participation of your gods, to invoking, becoming one with them. Don't hurry through this. What will happen is there will come a time when you have invited the god and the goddess, their energy as you see it, to join you in circle. And there is going to come the most beautiful moment when something inside you, not the logical learning, the historical research, the understanding of mythology, none of those dry aspects of your relationship with the gods, there is going to come a moment of passion, a moment when, at your most intimate level, you understand what connects you to them. Because our connection with the gods isn't one of what we learn, it is one of what we experience. There will come a time, through the repetition of your rituals and your practices, where you've released your body then from having to plot and plan. It knows what it's doing. It's in the flow of it. And I dare say your guides also know what you are doing, and they honor the rhythm that you have set up. They literally recognize you amongst all of existence. They understand what is uniquely and purely and perfectly you. This recognition works both ways. At the same time, your maturity of relationship to them moves beyond the logical to the heartfelt, to the deep-seated knowing who they are to you. They literally live inside of you. They are, at a most beautiful level, your construct. You didn't make them. To my mind, they're out there. The old ones are out there waiting for us. However, what you construct, that what they are to you, it's like a thread that runs from your heart outwards. I was in a Hindu temple once, and there was a red string that ran from one of the shrines within the temple up into the roof of the temple and then out the parapet that was at the top of the temple. And I asked the monk who was attending what it was. I'd never seen it. I had very little understanding of the specifics of the Hindu practice, and he explained that it was the energy and the beauty of everything that was held within the temple that was offered up literally to the sky through this red thread, offered up and outward into the nearby community and to the world and into the greatness, into the vastness, into the unknowable. And I have to tell you, that's how that temple felt. You were drawn into it. You acknowledged it as a place of love even when you knew nothing about it. That's what drew me in. That's what your relationship to the gods will feel. The first time you instinctively, I dare say it will not be intentionally, you instinctively invoke them. It's the red thread that runs from you and out of you and upwards and connects you to them. There's a moment at which you will, for the first time, understand what of you is holy, what of you is sacred and beautiful. And in the moment you acknowledge that, you have invoked God or Goddess within you. It'll happen in its own good time. You need to know your gods well. You need to understand your relationship to them. One thing builds upon another, and then there comes that moment when you know that you are one and the same with them. You experience it outside of your circle. You experience it in every moment of your life. The difference of being in circle is you have declared for the moment, this will be my priority. This will be my focus. Where? In my experience in a coven, the laying on of the hands, the physical touch of the priest moved me to open up and invite in Goddess to share this vessel with her. The solitary can achieve the same sense of wonder and awe and beauty by sitting still and opening up, by lighting a candle, by being creative and taking on an action that feels like an opening up and a filling up at the same time. The sole purpose of a ritual can be to have this experience, to step outside of our busy times, our noisy lives, to be still and know we are one with the gods that we adore. It will happen in time. We begin by evoking, by inviting them to be with us. And then there comes a time when we know what we have in common with them, when we have this ability to suddenly trust and open and give over, and they quietly slip in. This is part of the passion of our rites. It is equally as moving to the solitary practitioner. It's simply a matter of opening up to the possibility. So after we've cast, invited the guardians, evoked them, honored the aspects of the elements we are going to work with, evoke that energy. At that time, we will evoke our gods to be there, present with us at some point in our ritual. According to our need of the moment, we don't always need to invoke them, to call them in. We may plan it and think we do, or we may find in the moment during our working that we do. First, we invite them. Ask them to be with us so that we've created that connection, that red heartstring from us to them. It's there for us to make use of as we feel we need within the ritual we are about to do. At some point, when we feel called to, or perhaps we have planned it within our ritual, to invoke their presence within us, we are simply triggering a shift in awareness. It is at the same time a deep going within and a release to something which is just huge and vast and mysterious. Invocation is a release to a transpersonal experience, an experience outside of ourselves, but still holding our personal perspective within that. We evoke the guardians, we evoke the elemental powers we'll work with, and we evoke, invite, and ask to stand by our gods. You'll read different things. Some traditions always evoke the goddess first, by some act, usually lighting a candle for her. Some always evoke the god first, invite him by some action, very often a lighting of a candle. There's no right or wrong here, but there is great importance in understanding why you choose to do it in the order you choose to do it. Here's what I do and why. I evoke the god first, and here's why I do that. I see him aligned with me, partner with me, standing at my side, equally devoted to the goddess. I ask him first so that he can be a part of, you could say, the welcoming committee for when I evoke her. That feels right for me. He and I standing united in our desire for her presence and our love of her. That feels normal, an appropriate order for me. Then, more or less together, he and I evoke, invite her to join us. This has worked very well for me as a solitary practitioner. In a way, I feel less lonely in my circle. He's there representing all who have ever been in my circles with me over time, all who celebrate similarly to me and have over time. He represents a connection to our human adoration of her because he understands it. He feels exactly the same way. And then he and I together invite her to join us. You might try doing it both ways, inviting her and then bringing him in, but know why you are doing it. I would like to say here that I have invoked the God within me. There are specific times of year. There are specific workings where he's the energy I want to be one with. I think I've done videos here and there about my lack of connection to the boy-girl aspect of the male and the female aspects of divinity. I honor certain archetypes, certain powers, certain energies as the god, and certain energies, powers, and archetypes as the goddess. But I am at ease and indeed filled with and inspired in a very particular way if I call the God within me. Okay, not so much equally for me as to when I call her in. That seems to be where my greatest innate connection is. But I connect to both of them in this way. And in fact, in my solitary practices, I have focused on developing a relationship that is equal in power, whether I evoke or invoke, to both of them. Just think about that. Think about what it might mean to you if you haven't tried. As a woman invoking God, try it. And as a man, if you haven't tried invoking Goddess, try it. In its own time and place. It might seem, as it does to me, overwhelmingly beautiful, inspirational, powerful, and natural. How might you evoke, invite the God and Goddess at this time in your ritual? It can be as simple as lighting candles for each of them. It may be all that you need to know. As long as in the process of lighting them, you are connected to what you are doing, why you are doing it, and connected to their energies as you do it. This should not be something you do by rote. I like to start, as I mentioned, by evoking the God, by lighting his candle. I have words that I say every time, just so that I have them memorized. I know what energy, what feeling moves through me, and over time, of course, he recognizes, and he's saying this, he knows who I am when I speak to him. My words that I use are a bit personal. They are inspired by these words that I'm going to share with you. I, personally, start having a little bit of an intimate word or two, whatever feels like what I want to say at the moment. And then I go on to more formalized words that I have memorized, and they would be similar to what I'm going to share with you now. Not exactly. I found when it came to sharing what happens in circle, the invocation, evocation felt kinda words I want to keep to myself. I think you understand that, don't you? It's an intimate relationship, this relationship with the gods. These are words very similar to the ones I use. But remember that for me, first there is a personal calling out. Then there are these words, and then there is a lighting of the candle. I begin, as you know now, by evoking the presence of the God. I call upon you, horned one, dread Lord of life and death. By day and night, by sun and tree, by hoof and feather and fur, so that within me your passion may be fulfilled. That which I adore, I also invoke. Hail and welcome. I totally stole those words from poetry I'd seen here and there. Some taken from traditional sources, rewritten, but this particular combination, day and night, sun and tree, hoof and feather and fur, that moved me, and it has been what I have consistently used after my personal words to him. And notice, the ending of that is, that which I adore him, I also invoke. I've been doing this so long now that I automatically assume there is an invocation when it involves my gods, no longer an evocation. I ask them to be present, and then as they need and as I need, to become one with me. That which I adore, I also invoke. And then it feels as though he and I, compatriots, are in circle together, and we turn towards welcoming the goddess. And the same thing, I have words that aren't fixed words, that rise from my heart, that red string that I offer up before I light her candle. And then I speak the following words, something similar to them, and light her candle to welcome her. I call upon you, mighty Mother of us all, by seed and root, by bud and stem, by leaf and flower and fruit, so that within me your service may be fulfilled. That which I adore, I also invoke. Hail and welcome. The difference between the two is the use of, with the God, may my passion be fulfilled. That is where my connection to him is. And for her, I reference, may our service be fulfilled. Because as priestess, I feel in service to her and everything that she's in service to, which is so much beyond my own personal needs, but includes them. And I love those words for her: by seed and root, by bud and stem, by leaf and flower and fruit. And then I light her candle, and it feels like, as I mentioned, the God and I welcoming committee, inviting her to join us in circle. When I see the flames for these two, the twin flames on my altar, I see that reflected in me. I feel that reflected in me. They may feel present in my circle, distinct and separate from me. It gives me a chance to adore them that way. And then there will be times they move in and through me. Both times that I plan on and open myself up to, and other times which I've come to think of as times they know they need to be connected with me. I don't know if it's their need or they sense a need in me. It doesn't matter. But there's a fluidity of that relationship to me in circle. Even when I'm not specifically drawing down the moon or drawing down the sun, intentionally wanting to bring God or Goddess within me, they come and they go and they move through me. The power of circle to me when it comes to the presence of the gods we adore is the feeling of their being separate, being something we can turn to. But at the same time, we're never separate. They move in us and through us. We move in them and through them. I hope this has given you some sense for one which, what evoke and invoking of the gods in our circle might be. Comes down to acknowledging in some powerful way who your gods are to you, opening yourself up, offering yourself up to them in some way. Early on in our practice, we invite them to be with us until there comes a time when we know what within us connects us intimately, perfectly, and beautifully to them. And then it becomes a feeling of oneness. We never release the sense of who we are or who they are, not as a solitary practitioner. What I've avoided as a solitary is something I did as a priestess to circle, which is give myself over so completely to the channeling, the experience of being one with the goddess, that oftentimes I didn't know afterwards what had happened. It benefited my coven mates. It was the whole point to benefit my coven mates. I don't do that as a solitary practitioner. I feel the need to be intimately present and aware of the moment as a solitary practitioner. When I feel at one with the goddess, I'm still very uniquely aware of me and she. When I am at one with the God, I'm very present to me and he. Because the beauty of it is realizing I don't have to know where I stop and they start. I just have to be open to being one with them. With any of my rites, there will be moments that I feel that we are together, we are all one. And especially the moments when all three of us are one. Oh boy, do they kick ass. That is just the most awesome thing. But there is when she comes and goes, when he comes and goes. Sometimes at my invitation, and sometimes because it needs to be. I don't need to know why. It just is. And then there is the feeling of their presence around me, separate from me within the circle. It all mixes and mingles and becomes just, I wish there was a more powerful word for beauty than beauty. Beauty to the nth degree, beyond the ability to explain the experience of it. That is the power and the passion of inviting and being one with our gods. Mary Part.